The marketplace in Shadowhaven was never kind to Omegas, but today it seemed particularly hostile as I clutched my little sister's hand and tried to make ourselves invisible among the bustling crowds. At 16, I was old enough to understand that our situation was desperate, but 7-year-old Lily still believed that tomorrow might bring the miracle that would save us both. My name is Maya Thornfield, and for the past 3 months, Lily and I had been surviving on the streets after our pack cast us out following our parents' deaths in a rogue attack. The Silver Creek pack had decided that 2 orphaned Omega girls were more burden than they could afford, especially with winter approaching and resources growing scarce. "Maya, I'm hungry," Lily whispered, her small voice barely audible over the noise of merchants hawking their wares and customers arguing over prices. "I know, sweetheart," I replied, forcing my voice to remain steady despite the ache in my own empty stomach. "We'll find something soon." It was a lie, and we both knew it. The few coins I had managed to earn through odd jobs around the market had been spent on a meager breakfast that morning, and no one was interested in hiring Omega children for anything that paid enough to matter. We were trapped in the downward spiral that claimed so many displaced wolves who had nowhere to turn for help. "Look," Lily said suddenly, her voice brightening with the kind of hope that only children could maintain in impossible circumstances. "There's a fancy carriage coming through the square. Maybe whoever's inside is rich enough to spare some food." I looked where she pointed and felt my heart stop. The carriage rolling through the marketplace wasn't just fancy, it was magnificent, crafted from polished ebony and decorated with silver inlays that caught the afternoon sunlight like captured stars. The horses pulling it were massive black stallions that moved with supernatural grace, and the guards flanking it wore armor that marked them as royal protectors. This wasn't just any wealthy merchant passing through Shadowhaven. This was royalty, probably Alpha King Damian Blackwater himself, making one of his rare appearances in the border territories. "Lily." "No," I said urgently, tightening my grip on her hand as I recognized the desperate plan forming in her young mind. "We can't approach the royal carriage. They'd have us arrested or worse for bothering them." But my little sister had already slipped from my grasp with the quick reflexes that all street children develop for survival. Before I could stop her, she was running toward the slowing carriage, her small voice calling out with the kind of fearless innocence that adults had long since learned to suppress. "Your Majesty, please, Your Majesty, can you help us?" The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Royal guards moved to intercept her, their hands going to weapons that could end her life in an instant. But before they could reach my sister, a voice from inside the carriage stopped them cold. "Wait." The single word carried absolute authority, and every guard froze in place as if turned to stone. The carriage door opened, and a figure stepped out who could only be the Alpha King himself. Damian Blackwater was everything the legends claimed, and more. Tall, powerfully built, with dark hair and silver eyes that seemed to see straight through to the soul. When he looked at Lily, who had stopped just a few feet away with her small hands clasped in supplication, his expression showed curiosity rather than the anger I had expected. "What's your name, little one?" he asked gently, his voice losing its commanding edge as he addressed a child who had shown either remarkable courage or remarkable foolishness. "Lily Thornfield." "Your Majesty," she replied with a curtsy that would have been perfect if not for the patches on her worn dress. "And that's my sister Maya over there. We're hungry, and we don't have anywhere to live. And Maya's been taking care of me all by herself since our parents died. I wanted the earth to open up and swallow me as every eye in the marketplace turned in my direction. Being noticed by the Alpha King was not on the list of things that would improve our situation. And I fully expected to be arrested for allowing my sister to disturb royal business. But when King Damian's silver gaze found me in the crowd, something unexpected happened. Instead of anger or irritation, his expression showed something that looked remarkably like recognition, as if he had been searching for something specific and had finally found it. "Come here," he said quietly. But his voice carried clearly across the space between us. I had no choice but to obey, making my way through the crowd that parted before me like water before a stone. When I reached the space around the royal carriage, I dropped to my knees in the formal position of submission that all Omegas learned from childhood. Your Majesty, I apologize for my sister's behavior, I said, keeping my eyes fixed on the ground as protocol demanded. She's young and doesn't understand proper respect for royalty. Please don't punish her for my failure to control her better. Look at me, King Damien commanded gently, and I had no choice but to raise my eyes to meet his penetrating gaze. What I saw there surprised me beyond measure. Instead of the cold authority I expected from someone with absolute power over life and death, I found warmth, curiosity, and something that might have been compassion. "How old are you, Maya Thornfield?" he asked. 16, Your Majesty, and you've been caring for your sister alone since your parents died." "Yes, Your Majesty, for 3 months now. Where do you sleep at night?" The question was asked with such genuine concern that I found myself answering honestly, despite every instinct that told me to minimize our desperate situation. "Wherever we can find shelter, Your Majesty. Sometimes in doorways, sometimes in abandoned buildings. We try to stay warm and safe, but it's getting harder as winter approaches." King Damien's expression darkened with something that looked like anger, but I sensed it wasn't directed at us. "What pack cast out 2 Omega children to survive alone on the streets?" "The Silver Creek pack, Your Majesty. After our parents died, they said they couldn't afford to feed extra mouths through the winter." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. When the Alpha King finally spoke again, his voice carried notes of barely controlled fury that made several guards step back instinctively. "Silver Creek pack," he repeated, and the name sounded like a curse on his lips. "Alpha Marcus Greywood's territory. I should have expected such callousness from someone who values gold over honor." He looked down at Lily, who had been listening to this exchange with the wide-eyed attention of a child, trying to understand adult conversations that would determine her fate. "Lily Thornfield," he said formally, "you showed great courage in approaching my carriage today. Tell me, what were you hoping I could do to help you and your sister?" "Well," Lily said with the straightforward honesty that only children possessed, "we need food and a place to live where we won't freeze when winter comes. And Maya needs someone to help her because she's been trying to take care of both of us all by herself. And she gets really scared sometimes, even though she pretends she doesn't." The observation hit me like a physical blow because it was absolutely true. I had been terrified every single day since our exile, afraid that I would fail in my responsibility to keep my little sister safe, afraid that my inadequacies would cost us both our lives. "I see," King Damien said thoughtfully. "And what if I told you that I could provide those things? Food, shelter, safety, and people who would help care for both of you." "You mean you'd really help us?" Lily asked, her voice bright with hope that was almost painful to witness. "I mean, I would do more than help," he replied, glancing between us with an expression that spoke of decision being made. "I would take you both home with me, give you places in my household where you would be valued and protected." "Both of us?" Lily asked, and her question carried the weight of a child who had learned that good things usually came with conditions that excluded someone she loved. "Both of you," King Damien confirmed firmly. "I don't separate families, especially not sisters who have protected each other through circumstances that would have broken many adults." I stared at him in shock, unable to process the magnitude of what he was offering. "Your Majesty, you can't be serious. We're nobody, just 2 Omega orphans with nothing to offer someone of your stature. You're someone who kept her little sister alive for 3 months on the streets," he corrected with conviction that brooked no argument. "Someone who maintained hope in impossible circumstances, who put another's well-being above her own comfort. Those are exactly the qualities I value most highly." He gestured toward the royal carriage, and I noticed for the first time that it was large enough to accommodate additional passengers. "So, Maya and Lily Thornfield, will you accept my offer? Will you allow me to give you the home and family you deserve?" Lily looked up at me with eyes that sparkled with excitement and barely contained hope. "Can we, Maya? Can we really go with the Alpha King?" I looked into King Damien's silver eyes, searching for any sign of ulterior motive or conditions that would make this offer too good to be true. What I found instead was sincerity, determination, and something that looked remarkably like genuine affection for two orphaned girls he had known for all of 10 minutes. "Yes," I whispered, my voice growing stronger as I processed the miracle that had just occurred. "Yes, Your Majesty, we accept your offer. We would be honored to accept your protection." The smile that spread across his face was brilliant enough to outshine the sun. And as he helped us into the royal carriage that would carry us away from hunger and fear toward an uncertain but hopeful future, I felt my life transforming in ways I couldn't yet understand, but somehow knew would be extraordinary. Lily curled up against my side as the carriage began moving, her small body finally relaxing for the first time in months as she processed the reality of safety and security. "Maya," she whispered as we left the marketplace behind, "do you think we'll really have enough food now? And warm beds? And people who won't send us away?" "I think," I replied, stroking her hair with hands that no longer trembled with fear, "that we're about to discover what it means to be truly wanted by people who understand our worth." The orphaned Omega sisters who had been cast out as burdens were about to become treasured members of a royal household. And somehow I sensed that our journey was just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since Alpha King Damien had taken us from the marketplace, and I still sometimes had to pinch myself to believe that our new reality wasn't an elaborate dream. The royal stronghold of Ironhaven was like something from a fairy tale, with soaring towers and gardens that bloomed despite the approaching winter, all protected by magic that ensured comfort and beauty year-round. But it was the way we had been welcomed that truly amazed me. Instead of being relegated to servants' quarters or treated as charity cases, Lily and I had been given chambers in the family wing of the palace. Rooms that were larger and more luxurious than anything we had ever imagined possible. This morning found me in the palace library, working with Master Scholar Elena Brightwater on lessons that were supposed to prepare me for my role within the royal household. The education I was receiving was far beyond what most Omegas could expect, covering everything from languages and mathematics to diplomacy and supernatural law. "Your progress has been remarkable, Maya," Eleanor observed as we reviewed my latest writing exercises. "Most students take months to master concepts you've grasped in weeks. Have you always been so quick to learn?" "I never had the chance to find out," I admitted, still amazed by my own abilities now that I had proper instruction and materials. In Silver Creek Pack, Omegas weren't given educational opportunities. Beyond basic survival skills, Elena's expression darkened with the anger that seemed to be a common response whenever anyone heard about our former pack's treatment of us. "Their loss is our gain," she said firmly. "King Damien was right to recognize your potential." The mention of the Alpha King sent familiar warmth spreading through my chest, though I tried not to examine too closely why thoughts of him affected me so strongly. Over the past weeks, he had taken a personal interest in both our educations and our emotional recovery, spending time with us daily to ensure we were adjusting well to palace life. "Speaking of His Majesty," Elena said with a knowing smile that suggested she had been watching my reactions more closely than I realized, "he's asked to see you in his private study after we finish here. Something about discussing your long-term role within the household." My heart began racing with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety that had become familiar whenever King Damien requested my presence. "Did he say what kind of role he had in mind?" "That's between you and him," Elena replied, but her expression suggested she knew more than she was revealing. I will say this, in all my years serving the royal family, I've never seen His Majesty take such personal interest in anyone's development. Whatever he has planned, it's significant. An hour later, I stood outside the carved doors that led to King Damien's private study, trying to calm my nerves and remind myself that I had earned the right to his attention through my own efforts rather than charity. The chambers beyond were his most personal sanctuary, where matters of highest importance were discussed. "Enter," came his voice when I finally worked up courage to knock, and I stepped into a room that spoke of power tempered by wisdom, lined with books and maps that told stories of a ruler who valued knowledge as much as strength. King Damien stood behind his massive desk, silhouetted against windows that looked out over territories that stretched to the horizon. When he turned to greet me, I was struck again by the presence he commanded, the way he seemed to fill any space simply by existing within it. "Maya," he said warmly, gesturing toward comfortable chairs arranged near a fireplace that cast dancing shadows across the room. "Thank you for coming. I hope your studies with Master Elena are progressing well." "Very well, Your Majesty," I replied, settling into the indicated chair and trying not to stare at the way firelight played across his strong features. "She says I'm learning faster than expected." "She's told me as much," he agreed, pouring wine from a crystal decanter and offering me a glass with casual elegance that still amazed me. "In fact, her reports about your abilities have been quite extraordinary. Intelligence, compassion, natural leadership instincts that most nobles never develop." He settled into the chair across from me, close enough that I could catch his scent, something that spoke of pine forests and winter storms, and power that was both controlled and overwhelming. "Your Majesty," I said carefully, "Master Elena mentioned that you wanted to discuss my long-term role within the household. I hope my performance has been satisfactory." King Damien's laugh was rich and genuine, filling the study with warmth that had nothing to do with the fireplace. "Maya, your performance has exceeded every expectation I had. The question isn't whether you've met our standards, but whether we're providing you with opportunities worthy of your potential." "I don't understand," I admitted, though his words sent hope flowing through me like sunshine after storms. "3 weeks ago, you were a homeless orphan with no prospects and no place in supernatural society," he said, his silver eyes holding mine with intensity that made breathing difficult. "Today, you're one of the most promising students Master Elena has ever taught, displaying capabilities that have impressed everyone who's worked with you." He leaned forward, and I caught a glimpse of something in his expression that looked almost vulnerable. "But I haven't brought you here just to praise your progress. Maya, I've brought you here because I need to tell you something that might change how you see our arrangement." My heart began pounding so hard I was certain he could hear it. "What kind of something?" "The truth about why I stopped when Lily approached my carriage," he replied, setting down his wine glass and giving me his complete attention. "It wasn't just compassion for 2 orphaned children, though that would have been reason enough." "Then what was it?" I whispered, though part of me suspected the answer would turn my world upside down. "Recognition," he said simply. "The moment I saw you standing in that marketplace, trying to protect your sister while dealing with your own fear and hunger, I knew I had found something I didn't even realize I was searching for." "I don't understand," I said again, though my heart was beginning to race with possibilities I didn't dare name. King Damien rose from his chair and moved to kneel beside mine, taking my trembling hands in his with gentle strength that steadied me more than words could have. "Maya Thornfield, over the past 3 weeks, I've watched you blossom from a frightened child into a remarkable young woman whose strength and grace have captured my complete attention." "Your Majesty," I began, but he continued speaking with urgent intensity. "I've watched you care for your sister with love that puts royal devotion to shame," he said, his thumbs tracing gentle circles over my knuckles. "I've seen you tackle educational challenges with determination that amazes seasoned scholars. Most importantly, I've witnessed you show kindness to everyone you meet. From the highest courtier to the humblest servant, the warmth from his touch spread up my arms. and I felt myself leaning toward him, despite every instinct that told me to maintain proper distance from someone so far above my station. "Maya," he said quietly, "I need you to know that what I'm about to ask isn't offered out of pity or obligation. It comes from genuine admiration for the woman you've proven yourself to be. What are you asking?" I breathed, though my heart was already reaching toward whatever he was about to offer. "I'm asking if you would consider accepting the position of my Luna," he said with steady conviction that sent shockwaves through my entire being. "My mate, my partner in ruling these territories, my equal in every way that matters." The words hit me like lightning, so unexpected and impossible that I was certain I had misheard. "You're Luna, but I'm nobody. Just an orphaned Omega with no family, no connections, no qualifications for such a position. You're someone who kept her little sister alive on the streets for 3 months, he corrected with fierce certainty. Someone who maintained hope in impossible circumstances, who put another's welfare above her own survival. Someone who has earned the respect and affection of every person she's met in this palace." He stood and drew me to my feet with him, his hand still holding mine as if afraid I might disappear if he let go. "Maya, what you call disadvantages, I see as exactly the qualities these territories need. Your compassion, your intelligence, your instinctive understanding of what people need to thrive. These are the gifts of a born leader. But what about Lily?" I asked, voicing the concern that overrode even my amazement at his proposal. "I can't abandon her, can't leave her to fend for herself. Lily would become my sister by marriage," he replied immediately, as if he had anticipated this exact concern. "She would be a princess of the realm, with all the protection and privileges that title entails. More than that, she would be family to both of us, raised with the love and security she deserves." Looking into his silver eyes, seeing sincerity and affection, and something that looked remarkably like love, I felt the last of my resistance crumbling. The orphaned Omega, who had been cast out as worthless, was being offered not just acceptance, but elevation to the highest position in the kingdom. "You would really want both of us?" I asked, hardly daring to believe that such happiness was possible. "I want the woman whose first instinct is to protect those she loves," he replied with certainty that sent shivers through my entire body. "I want the partner who would never ask me to choose between duty and family, because she understands they're the same thing. I want you, Maya, exactly as you are." "Yes," I whispered, my voice growing stronger with each word. "Yes, Damien, I accept. I choose you. I choose this life. I choose to believe that being cast out by the wrong people led me to find the right one." The smile that spread across his face was brilliant enough to light the entire study, and when he pulled me into his arms for our first kiss, I felt my life transforming yet again in ways that were both terrifying and wonderful. "There's one more thing," he said, as we broke apart, his forehead resting against mine. "I want Lily to be part of the mating ceremony. She's the reason we found each other, and she deserves to see the happy ending her courage made possible." Tears of pure joy began streaming down my cheeks as I realized that not only was I being offered everything I had ever dreamed of, but my little sister would be there to witness and share in the miracle. "She's going to be so excited," I laughed, imagining Lily's reaction to discovering she was going to be a princess. "She's been asking if we get to stay forever, and I haven't known what to tell her." "Tell her that forever isn't long enough," Damien replied with conviction that made my heart soar. "Tell her that some families are born, but the best ones are chosen. And tell her that the Alpha King who took in 2 homeless Omega sisters has discovered that his greatest treasure was hidden in plain sight." As I prepared to leave his study and share the incredible news with Lily, I reflected on the journey that had brought us from desperation to destiny in just 3 weeks. The pack that had cast us out as burdens had actually set us free to discover our true worth. The little Omega who had asked if the Alpha King could take her sister too had unknowingly orchestrated the most perfect love story. proving that sometimes the bravest words come from the smallest voices. Don't miss the incredible conclusion to Maya and Lily's transformation from homeless orphans to beloved royalty. How will their former pack react to the news? What magical surprises await at the royal mating ceremony? Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell to witness the stunning finale where family bonds triumph over blood ties and true love creates the most beautiful, happy ending. The most heartwarming revelations are still to come. 6 months had passed since that life-changing conversation in Damien's study, and the royal stronghold of Ironhaven buzzed with preparations for what was being called the wedding of the century. Representatives from every major pack in the Northern Territories had arrived to witness the mating ceremony between their Alpha King and the orphaned Omega, who had somehow captured his heart completely. But it was the small figure, bouncing excitedly around my chambers, that truly made this day perfect. "Maya, Maya, look!" Lily called out, spinning in front of the mirror while wearing her flower girl dress, a confection of silver silk and tiny pearls that had been created specifically for her role in the ceremony. "Do I really look like a princess?" "You look like the most beautiful princess in all the kingdoms," I replied truthfully, my heart swelling with love and pride as I watched my little sister embrace the confidence that had bloomed since we found our place in Damien's household. At nearly 8 years old now, Lily had grown into the bright, joyful child she had always been meant to be when not struggling for survival on the streets. Her education was progressing wonderfully. Her natural charm had made her a favorite among the palace staff, and most importantly, she had never once doubted that she was loved and wanted exactly as she was. "And you look like the most beautiful Lunar Queen in history," she declared, gesturing toward my reflection in the full-length mirror that dominated one wall of my chambers. The woman looking back at me bore little resemblance to the frightened teenager who had been cast out by the Silver Creek pack almost a year ago. My wedding gown was a masterpiece of royal craftsmanship, woven from moonbeams and starlight with pearls that had been blessed by the moon goddess herself. But it was the confidence in my posture, the peace in my eyes, that truly marked the transformation. "Are you nervous?" Lily asked, with the perceptive concern that sometimes made her seem far older than her years. "A little," I admitted, though my nerves had more to do with the magnitude of the ceremony than any doubts about my decision. "It's a big day, sweetheart. Everything in our lives is about to change again. But this time, it's good changes," she said, with the wisdom that often surprised adults who underestimated her intelligence. "This time, we're choosing to be part of a family instead of being thrown out of one." Her words hit me with emotional force that nearly brought tears to my eyes. She was absolutely right. Today wasn't just about my mating with Damien, though that was wonderful enough to take my breath away. Today was about 2 orphaned sisters officially joining a family that had chosen to love them unconditionally. A soft knock on the chamber door interrupted my thoughts, and I turned to see Beta Marcus Ironwood entering with the formal bearing that marked important pack business. "Your Majesty," he said with a bow that still felt strange to receive. "The guests are assembled and ready for the ceremony to begin. His Majesty asked me to inform you that there have been some interesting late arrivals that he thought you should know about." "What kind of arrivals?" I asked, though something in his tone made my stomach clench with familiar anxiety. "The Silver Creek Pack delegation," Marcus replied carefully, his expression showing distaste that was barely concealed. "Alpha Greywood and several of his advisors arrived this morning, claiming they wouldn't miss the opportunity to pay respects to their former pack members' elevation." The news hit me like ice water. "They're here? After casting us out to die on the streets, they have the audacity to come to my wedding. Unfortunately, diplomatic protocol requires that we allow entry to any pack leader who requests it for royal ceremonies," Marcus explained with obvious reluctance. "But His Majesty has made it clear that they are here as observers only, with no special recognition or treatment." Lily moved closer to me, her small hand finding mine with the protective instincts that street life had taught us both. "Do we have to see them, Maya? Do we have to talk to people who were mean to us?" "No, sweetheart," I said firmly, squeezing her fingers with reassurance I was trying hard to feel. "We don't have to do anything except enjoy our special day. They can watch from the back if they want, but this celebration is about our new family, not our old pain." "His Majesty specifically asked me to remind you," Marcus added with a slight smile, "that today you are Lunar Queen of the Northern Territories, and they are supplicants in your domain. The power dynamic has shifted rather dramatically. The reminder sent strength flowing through me like sunshine after rain." He was right. Today, I wasn't the cast-out Omega begging for scraps of kindness from wolves who saw me as burden. Today I was royalty, surrounded by people who valued me, preparing to bind myself to a man who loved me exactly as I was. "Then let's give them something worth watching," I said with confidence that surprised me. "Let's show them what they threw away when they decided two little Omega girls weren't worth protecting." The ceremony took place in the Great Hall of Ironhaven, a space that had been transformed into something from a fairy tale, with flowers that bloomed out of season and candles that burned with flames of pure silver light. Hundreds of supernatural beings filled the space, their finest clothes creating a sea of color and elegance that would have intimidated me months ago. But walking down the aisle with Lily at my side, scattering flower petals with joy that was contagious, I felt only peace and anticipation for the future we were about to claim. Damien waited for me at the altar, magnificent in formal robes that spoke of power and authority, but couldn't hide the tender expression on his face as he watched his bride approach. When our eyes met across the space that separated us, everything else faded away except the love that had grown between us and the promise of the life we would build together. "Dearly beloved," began High Priest Aldrich, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd with reverence appropriate to the moment. "We gather today to witness the joining of two souls who have found in each other the completion of their deepest hopes." The words that followed were beautiful, speaking of eternal bonds and shared purpose, of love that transcended circumstance and commitment that would endure beyond the boundaries of mortality. But all I could focus on was Damien's face, the way his silver eyes held mine with adoration that still took my breath away. When it came time for the vows, Damien spoke first, his voice carrying clearly to every person present. "Maya Thornfield, 6 months ago you were a homeless orphan, protecting your little sister with courage that humbled me," he said, his words carrying across the hall with conviction that made several guests wipe away tears. "Today, you stand before me as the woman who completed my understanding of what true strength looks like." He took my hands in his, the gesture both intimate and formal. "I promise to love you, not despite the experiences that shaped you, but because of them. I promise to honor the sister bond that brought us together and ensure that Lily always knows she is family to us both. Most of all, I promise to spend every day proving worthy of the trust you've placed in me when my turn came." I drew on everything the past months had taught me about my own worth and the power of chosen family. "Damien Blackthorn," I said, my voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "You saw value where others saw burden, strength where others saw weakness, treasure where others saw trash. You didn't just save our lives that day in the marketplace. You gave us the chance to discover who we were meant to be." I glanced at Lily, who stood nearby with tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks. Then back to the man who had transformed our world. "I promise to stand beside you as an equal partner in ruling these territories with compassion and wisdom. I promise to love you with the fierce devotion that protected my sister through our darkest days. And I promise to build with you a family where no child ever has to wonder if they're worth protecting." When High Priest Aldrich pronounced us mated for life, the cheer that erupted from the assembled guests was deafening. But the most beautiful sound was Lily's excited squeal as she launched herself into our arms, completing the family unit that had been forged through adversity and sealed with love. The celebration that followed was magnificent, with music and dancing and feast that would be remembered for years to come. But it was during the quieter moments, when diplomats and nobles approached to offer congratulations, that the true significance of our transformation became clear. "Your Majesty," said one elderly alpha, bowing respectfully as he addressed me, "your story has inspired hope throughout the supernatural community. You've proven that cast-out Omegas can rise to positions of honor and influence. You've shown that family bonds matter more than blood ties," added a Luna from a distant territory. "The love between you and Princess Lily has become legendary among our people." But it was when Alpha Greywood finally approached, his expression showing shame and regret that was years too late, that the full circle of our journey became apparent. "Maya," he said quietly, unable to meet my eyes directly, "I came here to offer congratulations on your elevation. But I find myself needing to offer something else instead." "And what would that be?" I asked calmly, my voice carrying the authority of someone who no longer needed his approval or recognition. "An apology," he replied, his voice thick with emotion that sounded genuine. "We were wrong to cast you and Lily out, wrong to see burden where we should have seen potential, wrong to let fear of hardship override our duty to protect orphaned children." He looked up then, and I saw tears in his eyes that spoke of real understanding of what they had lost. "Watching you today, seeing the woman you've become and the joy Princess Lily radiates, I realize we didn't just fail two little girls. We robbed ourselves of the chance to nurture something extraordinary." The apology hung in the air between us, offering a form of closure I hadn't realized I needed. But my response came, not from the hurt Omega who had been cast out, but from the Lunar Queen who understood the power of forgiveness. "Alpha Greywood," I said gently, "I accept your apology. Not because it changes what happened, but because carrying anger would diminish the joy of what we've found. Lily and I are exactly where we belong now, with people who see our worth rather than our neediness." I gestured toward Damien, who had been watching this interaction with protective attention, and toward Lily, who was chattering excitedly with a group of young nobles who had become her friends. "We've learned that sometimes being cast out by those who don't understand us leads to being claimed by those who do," I continued, drawing on wisdom earned through experience rather than books. "Your pack's loss became our greatest blessing." As the evening wound down and guests began departing for their home territories, I found myself on the palace balcony with my new husband and sister, looking out over lands that were now truly our home. "Are you happy?" Damien asked softly, his arm around my waist as Lily dozed against my side, exhausted from the excitement of her first royal celebration. "I'm more than happy," I replied, feeling peace that went deeper than contentment. "I'm home. We're home." The little Omega, who asked if you could take her sister too, has discovered that the best families are the ones we choose rather than the ones we're born into. Looking down at Lily's sleeping face, still beautiful in her flower girl dress, I reflected on the incredible journey that had brought us from desperation to destiny in less than a year. The brave little girl, who had approached a royal carriage with nothing but hope and determination, had unknowingly orchestrated the most perfect love story, proving that sometimes the smallest acts of courage create the biggest miracles. "She's going to make an amazing princess," Damien observed, gently brushing a strand of hair from Lily's forehead with the tenderness that had first shown me his true character. "She already is," I replied, thinking of how she had adapted to palace life while never losing the compassionate heart that had sustained us through our darkest days. "And she's going to grow up knowing she's valued not for what she can provide, but simply for who she is." As we prepared to carry our sleeping princess inside to her chambers, I took one last look at the territories that stretched beyond the palace walls. Tomorrow would bring new responsibilities as Lunar Queen, new challenges in learning to govern with wisdom and compassion. But tonight, I was simply a woman who had found her place in the world alongside the people who loved her unconditionally. The Alpha King had indeed taken both sisters, just as Lily had asked. And in doing so, he had gained not just a mate, but a family built on the strongest foundation of all. The choice to love and protect each other no matter what the world might bring. The orphaned Omega girls who had been cast out as worthless had discovered that their true value could only be recognized by someone wise enough to see past circumstances to character, kind enough to understand that the greatest treasures are often disguised as the smallest packages. 1 year later, Lily would officially become our adopted daughter. Her coronation as Princess of the Northern Territories celebrated with the same joy that had marked our mating ceremony. But even then, she would insist that the best part wasn't the crown or the title, but the certainty that she would never again have to ask someone to take her sister too. We were finally home, finally whole, finally free to be exactly who we had always been meant to be. A family forged not by blood, but by choice, strengthened not by perfection, but by the courage to love each other through every imperfect moment. And it all began with a little Omega's brave question and an Alpha King wise enough to understand that the best gifts often come in pairs. Thank you for joining Maya and Lily on this incredible journey from abandoned orphans to beloved royalty. If this tale of sisterly love, chosen family, and finding home in unexpected places moved your heart, please subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories that prove our greatest treasures are often the people who love us unconditionally. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that being cast out by those who don't value you can lead to being claimed by those who see your true worth. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell to never miss our latest supernatural tales that celebrate the extraordinary power of family bonds, whether born or chosen, and the magic that happens when someone finally sees us as we truly are.